Sometimes it can feel like no matter what you do, the same patterns, the same experiences, the same relationship dynamics just play out over and over again. It can feel like you're just repeating the past again and again, but that's not actually true. It's not that same or similar experiences just persist no matter what you do. It's not that it just repeats, it's that you're recreating it. Hello my loves, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lorena. If you're new here, I'm a somatic self-concept and identity coach, and I help you to bridge the gap between who you currently are or see yourself as, perceive yourself to be, and who you desire to become, the version of you that you know you have the potential to step into. That's what I help you make happen. Today I want to remind you that you are not stuck. When old patterns repeat, and they often repeat over and over again in specific areas of our lives. So maybe no matter what you do, you experience the same relationship dynamic. Even if you've moved on from the person who hurt you, you get into the next connection and the same pattern plays out again. Or maybe you just feel like you can't see yourself as that version that experiences freedom in their life, or success, or beautiful friendships, or that is able to live their life however you want to live it. Maybe you just feel like there's a gap between who you want to be and who you identify yourself with and as right now. Often when patterns persist and they repeat over and over again, and trust me, I have been there, it can almost feel like you're being punished. You can fall into this place of self-victimization and feeling like you're doing all the right things and why is it not shifting? Or maybe you're aware that something does need to shift within you, but you don't know what or how. What tends to happen when patterns repeat and you feel stuck or stagnant is that you keep recreating the past over and over and over again. Maybe it's because you're acting from your old self-concept, or it's because you're simply not embodying the version of you that you need to be in order to break the pattern. And when I say embodying, I mean you've not become that. It's not integrated. It's not who you are. The past tends to repeat because you are still operating from it. Nothing can change unless you change. The change always needs to happen within first. Otherwise, you can take all the right actions, you can force yourself to do things, but if you're subconsciously not aligned with that action, it's going to be really difficult to break through these patterns, because these patterns keep manifesting, patterns from the past, through your subconscious beliefs, through your subconscious embodiment, your subconscious state of being. Let's talk about some changes that need to happen for you and things that you need to understand in your self-concept, in your identity, in order for you to truly break free from the past and leave it behind and stop taking it into the future. First things first, your self-concept is connected to your reality. We are all always operating from a particular self-concept or identity that can show up in specific areas of our lives, so it can differ based on different aspects and areas of our lives. It can also be very similar with different areas of our lives. But you always have a persona, you always have a perception of yourself, an identity that you're operating from, a self-concept that you're living from, that determines your experience. And that's based on various aspects. It's based on your actions and behaviors. It's based on the state you're living from. So it's based on how you feel about yourself, how you think about yourself, who you think you are, how you see yourself. And what basically happens is that when your self-concept has not shifted yet, when your self-concept has not fully transformed into the version of you that you need to be in order to call in new experiences, it's that on some level, because you're still attached to that old identity, you are expecting the past to repeat. Why is that? Because it's what you know. It's absolutely human nature, and for a long time it enabled us to survive, to look back at the past and take that as proof or as an indication to determine what may be happening in the present and what is going to continue to happen and play out into the future. It's very often a protective mechanism that is based on a survival instinct to keep you safe. Now, you are not going to die if your partner cheats on you. You are not going to die if you don't feel chosen. You are going to be fine if something that you want doesn't quite work out for you. But for your nervous system, that might feel like death. That might feel like something really bad is about to happen. So what you need to learn how to do is to let your future be a blank canvas. And that is not easy, because we're so wired to look to the past to determine what's going to happen in the future. And this brings me to the way to change that and allow the future to be a blank canvas is to work with your past. You need to learn to release the attachment to the pain and the experience from the past. When I speak to people in my DMs, like potential clients, people in my community that have been actively working on their self-concept, maybe for a while, or that are attempting to, they're often very future focused, and that's great because you want to release the attachment to the pain of the past. But if the lessons from the past aren't integrated, if the pain from the past isn't processed, if your assumptions from the past are still living somewhere in your subconscious, it's not that easy. And I see that a lot of content online around identity and self-concept work and becoming your future self is all around diving into the future, and it's completely neglecting the past or only touching it to a small extent. And working with the past is one of the most important aspects of this journey. For example, in my coaching program, Recreate Yourself, which is all about transforming your self-concept and becoming the version of you that you desire to be, the first 7-ish weeks are primarily focused on the past. And people tend to be scared of that because they think it means they get stuck in it or they get stuck in fixing mode. It's not about fixing. There's nothing to fix about you. It's also not about dwelling in this and getting stuck in it. The reason people sometimes get stuck in it is because they don't actually know how to process and integrate it and how to shift things in their subconscious truly. And so they continue to live in the past. And what does that do? You're going to continue to take the past into the present and the future with you because you're going to have a strong attachment to the past. And if that's you, have compassion for yourself, right? The reason so many people are attached to the pain from the past is because it feels so familiar. It feels so known. And it can almost feel good to have that pain be validated, right? It can feel good to keep yourself in sort of a victim state or a victim mindset, because self-victimization can be a part of your self-concept. It can be a part of your identity. And it's very common for people, especially women, to keep themselves in a victimized state, because if they want to feel important or chosen, but they don't, then at least if they are the victim and they feel sorry for themselves, at least they get some attention from other people. Maybe they get some pity or they get some compassion. And although being stuck in the past, continually reliving the pain from the past, does not feel good, it doesn't feel good for anybody, the familiarity of it and the attachment to that self-concept, to that identity, can almost feel good. And when a client comes to me or somebody in my community sends me a DM and they just reiterate their problems or their story, which we need to do because we can't just bypass it, I have compassion for that. I have so much compassion for that because I understand it, because I have been there. Most of the things you come to me with, I have been there, maybe not the exact circumstances, but surely the emotional experience of it or similar patterns of it. But whilst I have compassion, because I know it does not have to stay this way, because I know I can help them break through that pattern once and for all, I don't validate it. I don't confirm it for them. That would be very disempowering. I see all of you as the version of you that you have the potential to become. When someone doesn't trust themselves to believe in the future that they desire, when someone doesn't trust themselves to invest in themselves, it's my job, even before we begin working together, it's my job to empower you and to see you as that version before you're there, even if you can't see it or feel it yet. I know what's possible for all of you, and so I will never keep you stuck in the past. I will only help you process it and transform it, transmute it, so that you can drop that pain, that attachment to what once was. Remember that it's only when it's not fully processed or integrated that you are taking that pain and that attachment to the past into the future with you. And you can know that, you can tell whether that's what you're doing based on what activates you, what triggers you in your circumstances, based on assumptions that you're making, expectations that you have about what's likely going to play out in the future, and also simply based on what you're seeing and experiencing. If patterns do continue to repeat for you, then there will be something from the past that isn't fully processed or integrated. You haven't transformed it at the root, at the deepest subconscious level. Now, it's also important to remember that what you're experiencing now is a product of your previous state of consciousness. Essentially, and you may have heard this before, you need to not react to what you're seeing and experiencing right now. That is not as simple as just not reacting, right? Like, it's easier said than done. And I have a whole video on why I don't encourage you to ignore your physical circumstances or ignore your external circumstances and how that usually backfires. So that's not what I'm asking you to do here. It's not about forcing yourself not to react. It's more about what I said before about the integration of the pain from the past. Past, by the way, does not have to mean all the way back in your childhood. It can, but you can carry just as much trauma and pain from the relationship that ended 2 months ago. The non-reactiveness will come automatically once you have worked through what happened in the past. Once you have released, alchemized, transformed that pain, you will just get to a place where you realize, oh my God, that's the thing that used to trigger me. Oh my God, I'm unbothered about that. What is going on? So you will be able to see that in hindsight. That's how you know that something has shifted. And when you're able to stop reacting without having to make yourself not react, that's when over time, those patterns will stop repeating and you will actually get to experience new circumstances, experience a reality that's not based on the past being projected into the present or the future. This automatic non-reactiveness, the sense of I am not even bothered about this anymore, that is one of the key things how you know you have actually changed something at least in your self-concept. And I will make a whole new video about how to know whether you've actually changed your self-concept or not, because a lot of people misunderstand the self-concept work in the sense that they think it's just about saying affirmations and loving on yourself. And whilst that's nice and part of it, it goes so much deeper. And when we approach it from a very much surface level, it's no wonder that some things just persist or continue to repeat. And even the desires that you have are a product of your previous state of consciousness. You will not see your desires the same way anymore once you have shifted your self-concept and your identity. This is why the change in your self-concept is the most important thing, because what is key to create things in your life, to achieve goals in your life, you need to detach. And I know that's hard. It's so hard to release that attachment to what you so deeply desire. But the best way to release that attachment is to change your identity around it, to change your self-concept around it. And it's interesting, right? Sometimes people fear actually losing their desires if they do go through an internal transformation. I used to get a lot of clients come to me because they wanted some external results. That doesn't really happen as much anymore. I now tend to work more often with clients that want the internal transformation, that want to break through not just the external patterns, but also how they feel about it and the reactions and assumptions they automatically have, because you can live the life of your dreams if you're still constantly in fear and activation and attachment. It's just not going to feel good. But when I was still working with more people who were purely about the external results, and by the way, no shade if you're into the external results, I am too. We also want tangible physical results and not just the internal shifts. But when that was the case, I would sometimes come across people who were afraid of actually working on their self-concept with the depth, at least, that we are doing it with and recreate yourself, they feared that their desire would maybe dissolve. Well, I would say they didn't fear losing the desire, they feared losing the attachment, because it's all that they knew. And the attachment to the desire was an attachment to an identity. It wasn't attachment to the version of them that was living their life activated and attached to a person or an experience or a thing. Because if you truly lost attachment, how liberating. If you truly lose a desire or it changes or it shifts, so what? You're just expanding, you're just growing, you are just becoming more of who you are meant to be. And the potential that you came here to experience and live from and become. Of course, for the future version of you, the self-concept that you currently want to have will feel very different. That version of you is going to have a very different perception on that identity, on the things you desire, and on who you were in the past. For that version of you, the things that you're currently maybe longing for or feeling like you can't break out of, it's going to feel completely natural to live that life that you desire and to feel so good in it. Speaking of the past and the subconscious, by the way, I do have a free subconscious reprogramming masterclass, which is linked in the description box below, the replay of it at least. It was an amazing masterclass. It's about 2 hours. It's completely free of charge. Make sure you dive into that and then let me know what you learned from it. Send me a DM on Instagram or leave a comment down below. So I've also been speaking a lot about the past and the future, right? But what we cannot neglect or deny, and what is probably the most important, is actually the present. One of the most powerful things that you can do is to just learn to be present. Most people either live in the past, right? It's this attachment to what used to be and how things were and what hurt you in the past, or you may be living in the future, and that's just a sense of anticipation and you find it really hard to just be here now. You might constantly dream of the future, and whilst I'm all about the future, right, like embodying the self-concept that you want to live from, that's often about a future version of yourself and kind of collapsing the time until you become that, or enabling you to even become that. I love the future, and I think you should dream big, and you should absolutely allow yourself to go all in, and you should allow yourself to do everything that you can to prioritize this. Prioritizing self-concept work is the most important thing. That's why I teach it. That's why I coach on it, right? But if we only live in the future and we cannot be present, then you're constantly going to keep chasing, which is very unhealthy, because then you can create a life that is beyond your wildest dreams, and you're still not going to feel satisfied. You're still going to find pieces where you're unfulfilled, where you're not grateful. And I don't talk about this so much, but in Recreate Yourself, we're actually working a lot on just being present and building capacity in your nervous system to be with everything that is, past, present, and future. The more you're able to get present in your body, in your reality, in your consciousness, and to bring that presence also into your subconscious, the more you're able to trust yourself. And self-trust is so incredibly important, and it's actually one of the results that I haven't even really promoted from Recreate Yourself, but that every single person has gotten out of this the most. I hear this all the time, that clients, when they finish the program, they're like, oh my God, I finally trust myself after years of being at war with myself or my reality or God. And that self-trust is going to make everything so much easier for you. And to some extent, even if you haven't worked with me yet, you need to trust yourself now already. A lack of self-trust is one of the most common patterns that I see with clients or with people in my community. Like even people who are so keen on joining Recreate Yourself, on working with me, the thing that is usually stopping them if they don't take action, if they don't join, although they're wanting it so badly, is that they don't trust themselves. And they find excuses around money or time or something that prevents them from taking action, but it usually comes down to a lack of trust in themselves. So self-trust is super important, and it comes through a connection with your body and a presence in your body. And that's what we work on in Recreate Yourself a lot, because it's a lot of nervous system work. A lot of this is nervous system work, like even the subconscious work that I'm speaking of, it's a lot about the nervous system. The subconscious lives in the body, it's not just the mind. And that is a very experiential process. It's not enough to just be like, okay, I'm gonna be present. That's great. But doing that deeper work in your nervous system is life-changing. When your nervous system is balanced and expanded enough, number one, you're gonna be able to be with discomfort, which is necessary when you are transforming into a new version of yourself and things are maybe not the way you want them to be externally. You will need to hold that vision before it's here. So that means you have to really learn to be with a lot of discomfort. And the other reason is your nervous system is only capable of holding so much. Often when you haven't worked through that, it's only capable of a specific version of yourself and it's going to keep you stuck in the past. So we work with your nervous system to expand you into a new version of yourself so that you can even be open to the opportunities that you want. You can even be open to the things that are about to come your way. This is very different from living in your future and constantly being in anticipation of the future or living in your imagination, right? Actually becoming that version of you, getting your nervous system into alignment with that version of you, that is how you collapse time. That is how you bridge the gap between who you currently are and who you desire to be. You will also need to act from your future self, from the version of yourself that you want to be. Because if you take actions based on who you are becoming rather than who you have been, there's already some rewiring that is happening in that moment. If you constantly make your decisions based on your current state of consciousness or based on your current circumstances or based on who you have been and how things have been in the past, you're going to repeat that cycle. You are going to see the biggest results when you allow yourself to take a leap of faith when it doesn't make logical sense, even before you see proof, because you trust yourself. Coming back to that self-trust. Something that always amazes me, and it has happened to me too when I have worked with a coach or a mentor or I've invested in a course or program. Most recently it happened for me with a training that I was doing that really expanded me, and that was a big leap for me. And the moment I invested in that, money came in. It was like God supported me because I took the leap of faith to do what I wanted to do, because I wanted to do this training, before I knew whether it was gonna be rewarding or whether I was gonna enjoy it, or before I had any proof of anything. And I hear this all the time also from people who join Recreate Yourself. When they take that leap of faith and when they act, they make the decision based on where they want to be rather than who they currently are. And so they trust themselves to commit to this and to make this investment in this program. So often, probably at least a third of the time, maybe even more, I get a message from them later on that's like, I just got a big check in the mail, I just got a tax refund, the most random things that they did not expect because they trusted themselves to act from their future self or from where they wanted to be before they saw proof, before knowing that they'd be safe to do so. You don't always need to feel ready before you make a move. Sometimes it's just a decision. You don't always need to have all your circumstances in order before you take action. You don't need to wait for a sign before you do that. When you trust yourself, you can do it anyway. Let me know in the comments if there's anything that you are wanting to implement from this video into your life. If you want support with that, you can reach out to me and we can chat whether Recreate Yourself is a fit for you. And make sure you subscribe, because next week we're gonna have a video all around the keys to becoming your most confident, authentic, best version of yourself. I will see you then.